Now look at this 26th question in 2014 A-level paper. It says the correct statement regarding money supply and income is. Okay. And if you look at the given answers, in all these given answers, they are talking about the difference between flow concept and the stock concept. So before we select this correct answer, we need to first understand the difference between a flow concept and a stock concept. So let me take this table to explain this thing. So let's write stock concept here, stock concept. And on the other side, let me take flow concept, flow concept. The main difference between these two is if something is a stock concept, right? We can say it is measured at a particular point in time. If it's a stock concept, it is measured as at a particular point in time. But on the other hand, if it's a flow concept, it is measured. This is how we write. It is measured for a particular period in time. See, this is the main difference between a stock concept and a flow concept. If it's a stock concept, it is measured at a particular point in time. If it's a flow concept, it is measured for a particular period in time. Methanadi, it's a period, but here it's a point in time. Now think about in accounting, if you do accounting, think about this. This statement of financial position, right? The statement of financial position, you just prepare as at 31st December in that given year. The statement of financial position you prepare as at 31st December in that given year. But the statement of the profit or loss, you prepare that for a period, typically for a period of 1 year. See, then the values that you write inside the statement of financial position are stock concepts, and the values you write inside this the statement of profit or loss we can recognize to be flow concepts. And in economics also, I hope that you remember that we say, right, we say that capital is a stock concept. Why? Because capital, the amount of capital that this given economy has, we evaluate it as at a given date. But on the other hand, the process of generating that capital, which is investment, we evaluate for a particular period. Hence, capital is a stock concept, and then investment is a flow concept. And what are the other examples? Even if you take this, wealth of a person is a stock concept, but the income of a person is a flow concept. Income is measured for a particular period, but wealth is evaluated as at a given date, right? And what are the other examples? Think about this: government debt or the public debt is a stock concept. Why do we recognize this as a stock concept? Because we evaluate it as at a particular date. And on the other side, we say, let's say, for example, budget deficit, government budget deficit. That's a flow concept. Why? Because budget deficit we evaluate for a particular period. So what are the other examples? So let me write. Think about this. I will write it here on this side first. Demand for a good. And the fifth one, supply of a good. These are flow concepts. By definition, how do we define demand? We say during a particular period when other factors remain constant, different quantities that consumers are willing to purchase and have the ability to purchase at different prices. See, the definition will start saying during a given period when other factors remain constant. If that's how we evaluate demand, demand has to be a flow concept. But on the other side, if I write this, demand for money and also supply of money, these two we evaluate as at a particular date. It's a demand for money, supply of money. Those are stock concepts. And on the other side, demand for a good and the supply of a good are flow concepts. Right. So I hope that you will understand the difference between these two, the difference between stock concept and the flow concept. If so, you are ready to identify the correct answer. Right. We'll read the first one. First option says both money supply and income are flows as well as stocks. Income is a flow concept, whereas money supply is a stock concept. So this is wrong. Then the second one, money supply is a flow concept. No, money supply is a stock concept, while income is a flow concept. This is also wrong. Both money supply and income are flows. No, wrong. You know the reason. Both money supply and income are stocks. Again, wrong. Money supply is a stock concept, yes, while income is a flow concept. 100% correct. So for this question 26, fifth one is the answer. Right. Now look at this question number 27. In question 27, we get this. The demand for money of a country is determined by. Once again, the demand for money of a country is determined by. So if you remember the determinants of money demand, you can easily find the correct answer for this one. So wait, I'll show you the determinants of money demand. So I hope you all see this new window now. So this is the theory note. So it says determinants of money demand. And what are the determinants of money demand? The first one, the level of income and the rate of interest, the general price level, if not inflation. Fourth one, innovations in financial system. The fifth one, real GDP. The sixth one, other institutional factors. So these are the determinants of money demand. And if you remember these, you can easily find the correct answer for that question 27. So look at this one. The demand for money of a country is determined by the interest rate, correct? And the second one, the amount of high-powered money, which is not a determinant of money demand. The second one, value of money multiplier and the interest rate. So once again, money multiplier is not a determinant of money demand, but the interest rate is a determinant. So somehow the given statement is wrong. The interest rate, yes, it is a determinant of money demand, but on the other hand, unemployment is not a determinant of money demand. And the fourth one says the real income. The real income, if not the real GDP, both are same. So real income, if not real GDP, is a determinant of money demand. And on the other side, yes, even interest rate is a determinant of money demand. So that the answer for this question 27 is the fourth one. And the fifth one says the amount of high-powered money, no, it's not a determinant of money demand. And the value of money multiplier, no, once again, even that is not a determinant of money demand. Right, look at this question 28. In question 28, it says a decline in price level, all right, which means imagine that we have this price level, if not in very simple terms, let's say that we have price of a good, right? Price of a good. So price of a good is not 100% identical to the price level, but for the time being, just to make the things simple, let's say that we have this price of the good to be 100 initially. All right. So what happens now? A declining price level. So the price of this good decreases to, let's say, rupees 10. Earlier it was 100, but now it is rupees 10. ඊට පස්සේ has no impact on the value of money. See that now. Value of money, if not, we can recognize this to be the purchasing power. Right? This is the purchasing power. Value of money equals purchasing power. So purchasing power means the number of goods that you can purchase by that given amount of money. Right? So let's assume that the income is rupees 10,000. Income of the person is rupees 10,000. In both situations, the income remains constant. Then how much is the purchasing power? What's the purchasing power? See, 10,000 divided by 100 will give you 1,000 purchasing power. If not, value of money is 1,000 units. But in the second situation, when the price level decreases, this is just 100, right? When the price level decreases, the purchasing power get increased to 1,000. See, if you know this, you can understand that this will never be the answer. Why? A decline in price level increases the value of money. There is a connection between the two. And what kind of a connection is that? There is a negative relationship. There's a negative connection between the price level and the value of money. The second one, a decline in price level increases the value of money, 100% true, and that's what happened in our example. A decline in price level has increased the purchasing power, if not the value of money. So that's the answer for this question number 28. But we will go through the other options. Has no impact on the value of money in the long run? No. Has no impact on the value? No, it has an impact. So the fifth one, reduces the value of money. No, a decline in price level only increases the value of money. Look at this question 29 now. It says the M2B of money supply of Sri Lanka consists of. So these are very straightforward questions and these are very easy. So if you remember the M2B definition of money supply, you can easily find the answer for this one. So wait, I'll show you the definition. The consolidated broad money supply, if not M2B. So how do we define that? This is the total of broad money supply, which is M2, and then the residents' deposits in foreign currency banking units, right? And the non-residents foreign currency deposits in local banking units. So this is the definition given for M2B money supply. So if you remember this one, you can easily find the answer for this one. And we'll go back to the question. The question says, M2B of money supply of Sri Lanka consists of, look at this. The first one, high-powered money plus foreign currency deposits, no, wrong. Second one, demand deposits plus foreign currency deposits, once again, no. It was a fixed deposits plus foreign currency deposits, no, wrong. Narrow money supply plus, okay, narrow money supply means M1, right? Narrow money supply plus, okay, M1 plus saving deposits of commercial banks. Now we get, I mean, if you get the total of these two, narrow money supply and the savings deposits of commercial banks, you get broad money supply, which is M2, not M2B. And the fifth one, broad money supply, which is M2 plus foreign currency deposits. Of course, generally we can consider those, the other terms, to be foreign currency deposits. And yes, when you add these two, you get the M2B of money supply. So answer for this question 29 is the fifth one. Right, now look at this 30th question. In the 30th question, it says, macroeconomic stability of an economy is well reflected by. Okay, what is macroeconomic stability in an economy? So let me write it here. We have macroeconomic stability. Macroeconomic stability comes when these two are achieved. The first one is internal stability. Internal stability. The second one, external stability. The meaning of internal stability is keeping the rate of inflation, right? Keeping the rate of inflation at a low and stable level. Rate of inflation at a low and stable level. So that we recognize as internal stability. If not, we can recognize that to be the price stability. Stability. What is meant by external stability? Low fluctuations in balance of payment and having stable exchange rate. Having stable exchange rate we recognize as external stability. Right. Enam what oy knowledge එක තියෙනවා we can find the answer for this question number 30. Macroeconomic stability of an open economy is well reflected by price level and foreign exchange rate is correct, right? So that is correct. But the second one, price level and employment rate, no. From the price level, of course, we can evaluate the internal stability, but we don't use this employment rate to evaluate that. Foreign exchange rate, yes, we use it to evaluate the external stability, but not the employment rate. That is wrong. Balance of payment and foreign exchange rate. See, this talks about the external stability only. And the fifth one, inflation. Okay, let's say price level and inflation. This is somewhat true, but not this second part. So for question 30, first one is the answer. Right, look at this question 31. It says, a microeconomic objective expected to be achieved by reducing the rate of interest of an economy is, all right, a macroeconomic objective expected to be achieved by reducing the rate of interest. All right, so we will imagine that the rate of interest is reduced. Right. When the rate of interest is reduced, let's see what will happen. Decrease in consumption due to increase in investment and price level. All right, see that this is the problem. When the rate of interest is decreased, the consumption get increased. Right? Consumption increases, not that it get reduced. So this part is wrong. And increase in investment, yes, that happens. When the rate of interest is decreased, the investments will increase. And the price level will also go up. So these two are correct, but the first part is wrong in this statement. Second one, increase in production due to increase in investments and aggregate demand. 100% correct. So that is the answer. See what happens when the interest rate is reduced, consumption increases. When consumption increases, the aggregate demand increases. When aggregate demand increases, investment increases, and as a result, what will happen? Even the production will increase. So this is the correct answer for this question 31. Right. But we will go through the other options as well. The third one says, increase in profits of the firm due to increase in consumption and investment. See that now the profitability of that given firm depends on their efficiency mainly. Enisa, we can't select this to be the answer. Fourth one, increase in government tax revenue due to increase in savings and decrease in consumption. No, the consumption will increase, even the savings will decrease if rate of interest is decreased. It was a fifth one, emergence of new investments. Yes, investments will increase, but due to increase in share prices and profit, business profit. No, this is not the reason. Investments get increased as we discussed here. The consumption increases. When consumption increases, the aggregate demand increases. When the aggregate demand increases, people will invest in capital goods and then they will increase the production. So that is what will happen in the economy. All right. So answer for this question 31 is the second one. Look at this 32. It says examples for expansionary monetary and fiscal measures are. All right. That is also one example for a expansionary monetary policy. මොකද අපි කතා කළේ reducing interest rates. See that now. කලින් කතා කරපෙම ගන්න පුළුවන්. Reducing interest rate. When the interest rate is reduced, what will happen? The money supply will increase. So that will be expansionary in nature. Right, now look at this next one. The next one talks about the fiscal policy measures. So this is the policy related to government revenue, government expenditure, and the public debt. So if that needs to be expansionary in nature, මෙන්න මේකයි වෙන්න ඕන, government revenue should decrease, but government expenditure should increase, and even the public debt should increase. ඔක තමයි වෙන්න ඕන. දැන් අපි බලමු ඔය ටික මොනවයිද කියලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. First one, increasing statutory reserve ratio and reducing tax rates. See that now the statutory reserve ratio, when that is increased, it decreases the money supply. So that is not expansionary in nature, right? So this is wrong then. Reducing tax rates is somewhat expansionary, but the first part is anyway wrong, so we can't take this to be the answer. Second one, selling of government securities by the central bank. See, once again, what happens here? The central bank sells the government securities to the commercial banks and absorb excess money in those commercial banks into the central bank. Then what will happen? The money supply will decrease. So it is not expansionary in nature. So this part is wrong. Reducing taxes is somewhat all right, but we can't take this to be the answer. The first part is wrong. The third one, increasing the statutory reserve ratio, once again wrong, no point of discussing because I explained the same thing in option 1. Fourth one, purchasing of government securities by the central bank. See that now, it's not selling, this time it's purchasing of government securities by the central bank, which means the commercial banks sell government securities to the central bank so that the central bank purchases them, and in return the central bank provides money to the commercial banks, and that will increase the money supply so that it will be expansionary in nature. So this is correct. And the second one, reducing tax rates, yes, even that is correct, because when the tax rate is reduced, the government revenue decreases, so that relatively the expenditure will increase, and as a result it will be expansionary in nature, right? So this is the answer for this question 32. But look at the fifth one, increasing the interest rate and increasing government purchasing. See, if interest rates are increased, as a result the money supply will decrease. Increasing government purchasing is all right, but the first part is wrong. Look at this question 33 now. It says public goods are not provided by the market, and we just need to find the reason for that. The first one says, even if a cost is incurred in consumption. See, for the consumer, there's no cost. The reason for these goods, nobody is going to make a payment. So from the consumer's point of view, there's no cost involved. So that's why we can't select this to be the answer. Second one says, the price cannot be charged. Yes, the price cannot be charged, and non-rivalry in consumption. Now we have these two characteristics when it comes to public goods. The first one is non-excludability. The second one is we say non-rivalry. So you might think that non-excludability is same as this. The price cannot be charged. No, those are two different things. Non-excludability means if somebody is not paying the price, we can't avoid that person using the given public good. So as a result of having this non-excludability, we can't charge a price. This is like the outcome of this quality or the property non-excludability. Non-excludability is the theoretical concept, and as a result of having this non-excludability, we can't charge the price. So that is also somewhat all right, no problem, right? As a result of having this quality non-excludability, we can't charge a price, and also such goods are non-rivalry in consumption. So we can recognize these two to be some qualities related to public goods. But then again, these are not the two main qualities. If you are referring to the two main qualities, the first one has to be non-excludability and the second one has to be non-rivalry. හැබැයි shape එකේ දෙකම those are qualities, but this is not one of the main qualities. එක main quality එකක outcome එක තමයි මේ තියෙන්නේ. Right. The third one says those who do not pay a price cannot be excluded. That is non-excludability, the direct definition of non-excludability. And the second one is non-rivalry in consumption. See, this third option talks about the main characteristics, the main properties of public goods. And due to those characteristics, the market economic system will not provide public goods. And out of these two, if you compare the second one with the third one is much more direct than the second one. So the answer for this question is the third one. All right, the fourth one says, even if a profit can be earned, no, by providing public goods, nobody can make profits. The fifth one, even if a price can be charged, no, nobody price, maybe the government would say that the price is this much, but nobody is going to pay that price as a result of this property called non-excludability. And so this is also wrong. It cannot be easily implemented, so there's no meaning for this part. So the most accurate from the 5 options, the most accurate, the suitable one is the third one. Look at this question 34 now. It says public debt of Sri Lanka as a percentage of gross domestic product shows a declining trend in the recent years, and they ask us to recognize the reason for that. This is in 2014 A-level paper, and this is not going to, this answer is not going to valid anymore for your paper. So I'm not going to discuss this. We'll skip this one. So come to this question 35. It says, social benefits are greater than the private benefits. See now the social benefit must be greater than the private benefit in which goods? Tell me that. In merit goods. Right? In merit goods. Insa අපිට දැන් මෙතනින් හොයාගන්න ඕන the answer which presents a merit good. Right? The first one, education and health services. Those are the examples for merit goods, and that's the answer for this question 35. But we will go through the other options. Infrastructure and environmental conservation activities. Those are not examples for merit goods. The second one, ports and airport services. No, those are not examples for merit goods. Road and hospital services. No. National parks and environmental conservation activities. No. Once again, these are not examples for merit goods. Right. Look at this question number 36. The supply side policies that promote production are, right? It has to be on one side, it has to be supply side, and it should promote the production. The first one, production subsidies. Yes, it is a supply side policy. Deregulation, true. Tax reforms, yes. Tax reforms in a favorable manner to the producers is true. And nationalization, no, that is wrong. It has to be privatization, not nationalization. So nationalization of the industries, of the businesses is not going to promote the production. So that's wrong. Then this is not the answer. Tax reforms in a favorable manner, yes. Nationalization, once again, that's wrong. Third one, regulation. No, regulation must be very low, right? Low regulations will promote production. So the third one is also not an option. The fourth one, production subsidies, yes. Expansion of administrative and development activities, no. Expansion of administrative activities, regulation. So this is not going to be the answer. The fifth one, tax reforms, correct. Privatization, correct. Deregulation, correct. And labor and capital market reforms, 100% correct. So this option shows the supply side policies which may promote production in the economy. So answer for this question 36 is the fifth one. That's an easy question. Right. 37. The sectors that reported a higher growth rate in Sri Lankan economy during recent years. So once again, this answer is not going to be relevant in your exam, in your year. So I'm going to skip this one. Look at this question 38 now. The two indices that can be used to measure absolute poverty and relative poverty. Right. Gini coefficient is a measure of evaluating relative poverty because Gini coefficient is connected with the relative income distribution, so that we use that to measure relative poverty, not absolute poverty. The second one, household electricity consumption, is not an answer for any. Right. That is not an index we use to measure the absolute poverty or the relative poverty. So that's anyway wrong. The second one, income percentiles and Gini coefficient, both we use to measure the relative poverty. The reason both of these are related to relative income distribution. So this is not the answer again. The third one, household income level, which is not a measure we use to evaluate either this absolute poverty or the relative poverty. The second one, supply of safe drinking water, once again totally irrelevant. The fourth one, poverty line. Yes, we can use this national poverty line to evaluate the absolute poverty, and the Gini coefficient evaluate relative poverty. So that is the answer. The fifth one, maternal nutrition and the supply of safe, again irrelevant answers. So for this question 38, fourth one is the correct option. Look at this question 39 now. It says market equilibrium and the import supply of a particular good is shown in the following figure. So see, they say that they have presented the market equilibrium. See, this is the market supply curve then, and this has to be the market demand curve. So you see the market equilibrium here, equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. In the next part, they say that they have provided us the import supply of the good as well. So this has to be the import supply, the supply of the rest of the world. Right. And by giving all this information, they ask us to figure out the area that shows the additional benefit to the society due to import supply. All right. So additional benefit to the society means the additions that happens to the economic surplus. Right. So before you look at the situation after importing this one, just look at the situation before importing this thing. So this is a supply curve and this is the demand curve. So based on this demand and supply, we recognize this region to be the consumer surplus. And then we recognize this region to be the producers, this entire region to be the producers surplus. This is what I wanted to highlight here. This part we recognize to be the economic surplus in the initial situation. But what happens later on when the economy imports this thing, the price get reduced to this PW level. That's the world price. So if the world price is this, even the consumers in this economy can purchase this thing at this price after importing the good. So what happens to the consumer surplus? Earlier it was this region A, but now the consumer surplus is presented by the region A, B, C. If they can consume this much now, with the importation, they can consume this much at the price TW. Now what happened to the economic surplus? The economic surplus got increased by how much? It got increased by this CF, by this region, CF. So that's the additional benefit to the society, and that is presented by what are the two letters we have here, C and F. So that's the answer. Right. Look at this question 40. Which of the following is not a reason for trade among countries? Which of the following is not a reason for trade among countries? Right. Look at this one. The first one says differences of factor endowment among countries. Whether this is a reason for having comparative advantage, and comparative advantage is one reason to engage in international trade. Right. Second one, differences of foreign exchange rate among countries. Foreign exchange rate is not a source of comparative advantage or absolute advantage. So this is not a reason for having international trade. And an answer for this question 40 is the second one. The third one, differences of technological know-how. Again, a reason for having comparative advantage. Existence of returns to scale in production is also one reason for having comparative advantage. The fifth one, differences in consumer taste and preferences among countries is also one reason for having comparative advantage. These are the sources of comparative advantage, but the second one is not a source. And second one is the answer for this question 40. Right, look at this question 41. Information pertaining to a particular economy is given in the table below. And then they say the correct statement about this economy is. Right, look at this one. We get the data related to per capita income and Gini coefficient. And what has happened to this per capita income over the years? The per capita income has increased. Even the Gini coefficient has increased. So increasing per capita income is actually good. But increasing this Gini coefficient increases the disparity in income distribution, and that's bad. Right. You can find the answer for this question. Look at this one. The correct statement about this economy is income inequality has decreased. No, the Gini coefficient has increased, so that we can say the income inequality has increased. Inisa, the first one is not the answer. Again, the third one is not the answer. Right. So we will read the second one and see. Income inequality has increased. Yes, true. With a contraction of the economy. No, the per capita income has increased. So the economy has expanded. So the second one is also not the answer there. Fourth one, income inequality has increased. Yes, true. With an expansion of the economy, yes. How do we recognize whether the economy has expanded or not? By looking at the per capita income. The per capita income has increased, and that is an indication of expansion of the economy. So answer for this question 41 is the fourth one. Right. Look at the question 42. The main dimensions of sustainable development. So these are very specific things. And what are the three dimensions? The first one is economic dimension. The second one is social dimension. And the last one is environmental dimension. Right. Economic, social, and environment. Economic development is here. Conservation of resources for future generations is, let's assume that to be economic dimension. And the second one is minimizing income inequality. No. So this is not the answer then. The second one, economic development, yes. Upliftment of social status, that is a social dimension. Minimizing the, no. So in the third one, the second option is not acceptable. The fourth one, environmental conservation, yes. Environmental aspect, inclusive growth, and the increase in employment. Now, these are not the dimensions of sustainable development. Then economic development, upliftment of social status, environmental conservation, all are correct. And our answer for this question 42 is the fifth one. Right. Then this 43, question 43. The output quantities of two products that can be produced in Sri Lanka and India using a given amount of inputs are illustrated in the table below. Okay, so this is once again the output. And so if you calculate the opportunity cost, you need to apply the output approach. Right. The first one, the correct statement according to the above information is India has comparative disadvantage in tea production. Okay, so it's about comparative advantage and absolute advantage. So you can simply recognize the absolute advantage by looking at this table itself. So Which country has absolute advantage in producing tea? Sri Lanka can produce 100 units of tea by that whatever the input they use, but India can produce only 90 units. So Sri Lanka has absolute advantage in producing tea. You can recognize that simply by looking at the table. Absolute advantage is always about the highest productivity. And then when it comes to garments, again Sri Lanka can produce more garments than in India. So Sri Lanka has the absolute advantage for both tea and garments. Right. And now let me write. Sri Lanka has the absolute advantage for both goods, tea and garments. But to recognize the country with comparative advantage, we need to do the opportunity cost calculation. So let me write comparative advantage. Comparative advantage. We can take tea and garments. So we have Sri Lanka and India. So I told you that we need to apply this output approach when calculating the opportunity cost. So according to that approach, we take, if it is Sri Lanka, we take 120 divided by 100 to find the opportunity cost of producing, and that will be just 1.2. And we take the reciprocal of this to find the opportunity cost of producing garments, and that will be how much? 0.83. 100 over 120 will be 0.83. And in India, to calculate the opportunity cost of producing tea, we take 100, that 100 we divide by 90, and the answer will be 1.11. And the reciprocal of that gives us the opportunity cost of producing garments in India, and the value is 0.9. So that's obvious, 0.9. Right, now we can recognize the country with comparative advantage for the two products. So if it is for tea, the opportunity cost of India is lower. So India has the comparative advantage in producing tea. And the opportunity cost of producing garments in Sri Lanka is very much lower compared to India. So that Sri Lanka has the comparative advantage in producing garments. And let me write it here. When it comes to comparative advantage, Sri Lanka has the comparative advantage over garments production, whereas India has the comparative advantage in producing tea. The correct statement according to the above information is India has the comparative disadvantage in tea production. No, they have the comparative advantage. Wrong. Sri Lanka has the comparative advantage in garment production. Yes, correct. India has absolute advantage in producing tea. No, Sri Lanka has absolute advantage in producing tea. Both countries have the comparative advantage in producing both goods. No, that doesn't happen. Fifth one, India does not have the comparative advantage in producing both goods. No, once again wrong. India has the comparative advantage in producing tea. So the answer for this question is the second one. Look at this question 44 now. In question 44, what are the five main sources of foreign exchange earnings of Sri Lanka in recent years? So I'm going to skip this one because the answer is not going to be relevant in your paper. Right, 45. Which of the following can be considered as unemployed? Right. Which one of the following can be considered as unemployed? An individual employed in the private sector as a clerk after his graduation. දැන් මෙතනදී මේ කියන try කරන්නේ මෙයාට degree එකක් තියෙනවා, he has graduated but he is working as a clerk in a private company. ඒතර මේකට අපි unemployment කියලා කියන්නේ නැහැ. We recognize this as under employment. එතකොට මේකට ඇත්තටම කිව්වොත් මේකට කියන්නේ invisible under employment. Right? This is invisible under employment, not unemployment. So this is wrong there. The second one, an individual who quits his job in order to look after elderly parents. Again, he is willing to sacrifice his job to look after the elderly parents. එතකොට ඒක යාගේ කැමැත්ත. එහෙනම් අපිට හිතන්න වෙන්නේ this person is not willing to work anymore. He is willing to look after the elderly parents more than the job. එහෙනම් the person is not anymore a part of labor force, because if he is not willing to work, he is not a part of labor force. එහෙනම් unemployment වෙන්නේ labor force එකකින් විතරයි. ඒ කියන්නේ labor force එකේ population එක මෙච්චරයි නම් ඒකෙන් අපි divide කරගන්නවා unemployed and employed කියලා. either if this person is not a part of labor force, අපි යාව categorize කරන්න යන්නේ නැහැ employed the unemployed ද කියලා. So this is wrong then. An individual who quits his job for higher education, again full-time students, is not a part of labor force. ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ හරිය ඉන්නේ. ඒතර ඒගොල්ලන්ව අපි unemployed employed කියලා බෙදන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. So that is also wrong. A woman who stays home to look after her children but seeking employment now. See that now the person is willing to work for a certain economic benefit, but for the time being he is staying home to look after the children. Hena, this person is a part of labor force and right now she doesn't have a job. Hena, she is unemployed. Right? She is unemployed. එතකොට මේක තමයි ගන්න වෙන answer එක. So for question 45, fourth one is the answer. Fifth one, a school student who does not work. Okay, if it's a school student, he is not a part of labor force. Right. For question 45, fourth is the answer. Look at this question 46 now. A major change in the labor force participation rate in Sri Lanka in recent years. Again, this is not going to be relevant for your exam. So we'll skip that. Look at this question 47 now. It says, what are the sub-indices that Sri Lanka should focus for further increase of its human development index within a short period of time? All right, so they are asking us to recognize the sub-indices. So these are the indicators, not the main indices. The sub-indices are the indicators. So let me show you the note. Look at this one. Here we have the human development index, and when calculating this human development index, these are the criteria we use, and these are the main indices we use, and these are the sub-indices, right? These are the sub-indices or the indicators, right? The sub-indices are life expectancy at birth, expected years of schooling, mean years of schooling, and purchasing power parity, GNI per capita. අර එන ඔය ටික මතක නම් දැන් එන question එකට it says labor force participation rate, no. Second one, literacy rate, no. Maternal mortality rate, again no. Per capita income, it has to be purchasing power parity per capita income, right? So not just per capita income. And school dropout rate, no. The fifth one, education participation rate, purchasing power parity adjusted per capita income. So this is correct. And here the education participation rate stands for the expected years of schooling. Enisa, from the given options, right, from all these five, we have to select this to be the most suitable option. So fifth one is the most suitable option. Right, look at this question 48 now. See, this is about the unemployment and the inflation rate in year 2012, and that's not going to be asked in your paper. And so we'll skip this one. Even in question 49, we get recent policy decisions. Those are not relevant for your paper. So we'll skip. 50th, the main driving forces of globalization are. So what are the major driving forces of globalization? මේක නිකන් හිතලා කියවන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ කියන්නේ ඉක්කොන ඉගෙන ගන්න ඕනෙත් නැහැ. The first one, improvement in transportation sector is a driving force in globalization. Maintaining protectionist trade policies. No, protectionist trade policies work against the free trade. It works against the globalization. So that's wrong there. Second one, the removal of protectionist trade policies, yes. Then it allows free trade, it encourages free trade, and advancement in technology, yes, true. Right. එතකොට මේකේ මේ තියෙන options දෙකම those are major driving forces of globalization. The third one, expansion of multinational companies, yes, somewhat true. Existence of labor market rigidities, no, that's unacceptable. The fourth one, economic integration, yes. Maintaining protectionist trade policies, no. Deregulation is somewhat acceptable. Existence of imperfect competition is not acceptable. So the answer for this question is the question 50 is the second one.